city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
I always dreamt that one day I'd make it. Do something great. See the stars. But sometimes, reality has different ideas. I remember those dreams starting to slip away. Those doors, they never opened for me.
Until now. Because with Upwell, it's never too late. We will give you a new life. A way to make a difference. Our cloning technology will provide you with a second chance. A fresh start. Be the version of yourself you were destined to be. And seize the dream of a future that you've chosen. Upwell.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is May 31st, YC126, 11 days to the expansion, and this is the Eve Universe Show! Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going, guys? Wayland Yutani? Well, there is already a Wayland in the game. It's Wiakomi, but, you know, either way. Yeah, how's it going, guys? It is Friday. We weren't able to stream yesterday because, A, my son was homesick, and B, CCP's announcement was, we're going to go with lackluster. So, but today my son is homesick again, but there's so much to talk about, you know, and what I wanted to do is, rather than just go over the corporation management stuff that we saw yesterday, which is kind of rehash of, like, I really didn't learn much over what we talked about on Tuesday. But what I want to do today is, like, we are less than 2 weeks away from the expansion. We already have a good idea of kind of how the next 11 days are going to play out. And we have some ideas about how the expansion is going to actually play out. So what I thought we would do today is kind of collect all of what we've learned in the last month or two into one kind of presentation where we talk about what it is that Equinox is, how we can prepare for it, what we should expect leading up to Equinox, what we should get, what we're getting in Equinox, and kind of a little bit about how things might play out post Equinox. So let us begin with a little bit of separate news, though. I do want to talk about this announcement today, which is our first speakers have been announced for FanFest 2025, which is in 1 year, right? They're not doing one necessarily this year because of how it played out with the half year. So basically, it was like a year and a half and then a year and a half. Either way, the point is that the next FanFest is next year, a little bit less than 12 months away because we're now at the end of May instead of the beginning. But we have our first speakers announced, which is Dr. Becky Smethurst and Dr. Ronald Turner, which senior science advisor to the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts and an Eve player. So, previously, like one of the things that they like to do at FanFest and the kind of presentations, they not only do Eve presentations, but there is always at least a few real life science presentations because we're all super geeky science nerds here. And I feel like they've stepped up their game a little bit with this one. You know, historically, we've definitely had some presentations by some of the people, especially associated with Project Discovery. But a lot of the time, it has been, the Pope, Max Singularity, doing stuff because he works for the JPL, so he's able to give a lot of really interesting presentations about like NASA and what they're up to. But now we have two astrophysicists, which are very, successful in their field. In fact, Dr. Becky Smethurst has a very nice YouTube channel, which we can check out. I subscribed to her today. I've seen some of her videos before, and I definitely want to check out more. But yeah, so it is pretty cool that they're going to be there. And yeah, it's also kind of interesting that they are EVE players. I think that they actually talk about this later on. They even identify one of the players, or one of the characters that they are, which I don't know if that's a good idea, but whatever. Either way, that's coming next year. FanFest, big deal. Book your tickets if you can. I don't think that I'm going, but that's just because, my life doesn't really allow for trips to Iceland, but I will cover it all here. Either way, let's get into the big topic of the day. New scientists, new discovery. On the one hand, I doubt it, right? This seems more in line with the fact that there's an EVE player with connections to nerdy science stuff, and therefore CCP wants to have them come on and talk about nerdy science stuff. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. That said, we are almost halfway through this year, and we haven't gotten a peep about the new Project Discovery that we're supposed to have gotten this year. So I need to check to see when exactly they said that we were going to get the new Project Discovery, but I think that we're officially late for it, especially with no announcement about it from Equinox. But we're going to have to keep an eye out for that because, yeah, you're right. We are due to get a new Project Discovery before FanFest, to be honest. But that said, I think that's I think it was just the app, right? Well, they want to be able to do it. They said new Project Discovery and the ability to do it in the app, I thought. It'd be really weird for them to just create an app for the old data set. I don't think that we would be able to get very much out of that. But that's just me. I don't know. I wasn't prepared to address that off the top of my head. Yeah. Either way, so that said, let's use that as a segue to jump into what we do know. Equinox is coming in just over 11 days. We've gotten a lot of different information. They've done a series of dev blogs called Equinox in Focus, in which they have communicated the details of a lot of the major topics that we have. Next week, they said that the dev blog is going to be relatively minor. As I predicted, it's probably going to be something along the lines of little things or other kind of like side patch notey stuff, with the actual patch notes being gotten next Friday. So next Friday, we should probably be able to talk about whether or not there's any corrections or last-minute things that we know from today. But until then, I don't think that we're going to get to... I think that we should all kind of rein in our expectations and say that what they have presented is basically what we're going to get, right? We shouldn't... I've learned a long time ago not to like read into things and be like, oh, there's this hole where they're definitely going to do this thing. So like, for instance, my predictions or my thoughts that they should change the LP store and that they're seemingly preparing things to be able to switch over to consortium LP for the insurgencies. Can't predict that that's going to happen in this expansion. They would have mentioned it already. So, that's just an example. But let's jump into what they do have. We're going to start at upwellconsortium.com, their new website that they put out in order to showcase Equinox. This is like a, oh no, this is not a boring one.
With Upwell, you can shape the universe. Unlocking the potential of the stars and planets you call home has been the unwavering focus of our finest minds. And now, we stand on the cusp of a new era. Introducing Equinox. An unrivaled suite of solutions for a new age of colonization. Revolutionary structures that offer unprecedented system-wide control, all operated and maintained by an efficient and skilled workforce. Embrace the freedom to shape space in your image and seize the dream of a star system entirely under your command. Equinox from Upwell.
So that is the top-level understanding of what is happening this expansion. The Equinox project is a project by Upwell Consortium, which is a major consortium of key players throughout all four of the primary empires. They were founded in, I think, 2015 in order to create player-based structures, with their first offering being the Citadels. And they have created all of the Upwell structures that we have today, including refineries, citadels, and engineering complexes, as well as flex structures, including the Sino beacons, Sino jammers, and gates, the Ensilibixes. So their new set of offerings is basically their solution to null security space and sovereignty. So this is an overhaul of sovereignty. This is not as complete of an overhaul as some of the previous examples, where basically everything in the old system was made obsolete and a new system was put into place, like we got with Pre-Dominion, Dominion, and Aegis, which were the previous major changes to sovereignty. Rather, this is more an addition to sovereignty, while changing the priorities about how space is maintained as being good and safe. In other words, how we customize and upgrade our null security space and what we do with it, rather than the mechanics of how we fight over sovereignty. Okay? So, first of all, harness planetary power. The first thing we get is the SkyHook. The SkyHook is an optional replacement for planetary customs offices in sovereignty null security space. So all POCOs, all planetary customs offices that currently exist everywhere else besides null security space, are not going to change. In the case of sovereignty null security space, effectively you can build a SkyHook, and then when you deploy it on a planet, if it has a planetary customs office, it will replace the planetary customs office. And if it doesn't have a planetary customs office, well, then it will also functionally replace the planetary customs office, okay? So these SkyHooks are not a change to planetary industry. All planetary industry, as we know it, is going to be exactly the same, okay? The only real difference is that now things that are being extracted off the planet will come to the SkyHook instead of a planetary customs office. And those SkyHooks can be blockaded by NPCs in a way that normal structures or normal POCOs generally aren't. So there is a new increased threat in theory for using planetary customs, or for using these SkyHooks for your planetary interaction in sovereignty null sec. However, there's also a new set of solutions to that problem. We'll get to those in a minute. However, what this does is it adds the ability to extract new resources from those planets. These new resources are going to be absolutely critical to the operation of null security space. And those new resources are workforce, energy, and reagents. Those reagents are ice and magmatic gas. So in other words, one reagent from lava planets, one reagent from ice planets. Power will only come from the local star, plasma planets, and storm planets. And the personnel will come from temperate, oceanic, and barren planets, okay? So basically, every planet type now has an additional resource that it provides to a nullsec group that places a SkyHook on it. However, those things are not created equal. Power represents the overall amount of power available to that system, right? Power cannot be exchanged, it cannot be transferred, it cannot be whatever your power level is in that system is that system's maximum power, okay? So systems with storm planets, systems with plasma planets, these are very valuable systems because that means that they can have more upgrades available to them at any given time, okay? This is the one of the three that cannot necessarily, that is like the hard limit, okay? That impact the system itself no matter what. The other two are a little bit more flexible. The next is personnel. Personnel must be supplied to local sovereignty hubs, and I believe no, I don't think Metenox's, but personnel must be provided to sovereignty hubs based on the number of bonuses or effects that are happening within that system. Okay, so a sovereignty power up, like the ability to light cyanojammers or the ability to have more powerful rats, all the normal iHub upgrades that you would get now from doing things like getting your ADMs higher and installing iHub things, all of those power-ups are now being moved to this new sovereignty structure. And the good news is that they no longer require specific strategic military or industrial levels, but what they do require is reagents and, power and personnel on an ongoing basis. Now, from my understanding of what CCP has explained about all of this, the reagents aren't necessarily required by the sovereignty hubs on an ongoing basis. However, they are required at the very minimum for turning on a service within the sovereignty hub. Now, this is key because, remember, by cutting off personnel, we can actually cut off a sovereignty hub's ability to operate. It'll shut those bonuses down, and then they would have to turn it back on, and that would require additional reagents. Personnel can be transported automatically between systems via sovereignty hub. One of the many upgrades that a sovereignty hub can have is the ability to transfer personnel from one system to another, and these can be daisy chained. So you can have one system that it requires a whole bunch of personnel on one side, and then 5 jumps away, a system with a bunch of planets with oceanic, temperate, etc. planets that you can put skyhooks on, and then you can daisy chain them between those 5 different jumps to provide personnel where you need them. However, those 5 jumps become points of weakness, right? If any of those 5 jumps gets cut off, if those services get turned off, then that transfer, those flow of personnel gets cut off. That'll cut off the destination system as well. And as I said, in order to turn it on, they're going to require more reagents. Now, reagents are by far the most flexible of the 3. They are the only actual physical item in the game. As I said, you can extract magmatic gas from lava planets and some kind of ice. I can't remember the actual word for it. Super ionic ice, right? So magmatic gas and super ionic ice are both required, and they are both physical items that can be loaded, that must be loaded up in a transport ship and moved to their destination, whether that is a sovereignty hub that needs to be turned on, or a or like a Metenox moon drill that requires them to be able to function. We'll get to those in a second. The other interesting thing about these reagents are that they can be sold to NPC buy orders, which means that these are a commodity. They are just worth raw-isk. We don't know how much they're worth, but even if there's no one there to buy them, they will still be sold as commodities, so they have a basic value. The other thing that's interesting about these is that these SkyHooks are designed to be raided by enemies. So as a dirty pirate, you can jump into a system and then attack the Sovereignty Hub and take down its shields. I don't know if there's a picture of it here. You can take down its shields and then rob its built-up resources. Now, you can visibly see by looking at the SkyHook whether or not it has a bunch of resources in it. You have to be able to damage the shields and take it down, which is not that much, but you do have to bring some DPS. And then you have to link to it and let it start like a robbery function that takes a total of 9 minutes, with warnings going out to other players 1 jump away, 2 jumps away, and 3 jumps away at, I think, 1 minute, 3 minutes, and 5 minutes, respectively. Or something like 8 minutes, maybe, I think. Either way. So the idea is that this is going to be like a thing that people can go in and rob, and then other people might decide to go defend it. Plus, of course, there's still the NPC blockades and stuff that can happen, too. So this is going to require a little bit of, you know, maintenance, as it were, by the people in the area. Otherwise, all your stuff is going to get stolen. Now, it's worth noting this doesn't necessarily stop power or workforce. However, you can still reinforce these structures too, and I believe that once they're reinforced, they stop functioning. So you can disrupt the stuff, but you can only steal the stuff from lava and ice planets. Okay? Now, all of these things are going to be used in order to build up the iHub, or the Sovereignty Hub's abilities. And the other cool thing about the Sovereignty Hub is that the Sovereignty Hub itself... Where's the picture of the Sovereignty? Really? So this right here is a picture of the Sovereignty Hub, but we saw in the pictures, like, there's all kinds of different things on the Sovereignty Hub. That's because each upgrade on the hub corresponds with some visual representation on the thing itself. So the Sovereignty Hub starting out looks very much like this. But if we look at the actual videos, we can see that, like this, we can see that there's all these different little doodads on the side of the iHub. So, like, for instance, this one here looks like it's the transportation one. So as a spy or as a scout, you'll be able to go throughout the enemy empire and look at their SkyHooks and their Sovereignty Hubs and piece together excuse me, piece together how their sovereignty plan works. Because that's really the biggest thing here, is that nullsec, unlike before, the players will have a lot more ability to customize what any given system is like, but they also require a whole bunch of additional logistics and planning, almost city planning and management, in order to make that all work, right? Because you can do everything from make certain nullsec systems provide low-sec or and anomalies, or even high-sec or an anomaly. So you can make little, like, tadpole areas of your null-sec area. You can make your low-sec stuff, so that way you can mine that sweet, sweet isogen, you know, and all that sort of stuff in these different areas, and then route the power and all that stuff to them as necessary. And so this will cause a nullsec group to potentially, like, utilize their sovereignty in such a way that it actually gives their space some sort of texture, right? Like, right now, there's basically systems that are ranked up in their ADM and systems that are not. And that's basically it. These will allow people to make choices as to what features they want to be available in any given system, provided, of course, they can provide enough security and resources in order to maintain their infrastructure. Cool. Now, with this comes a whole bunch of new hauling requirements. Like I said, these SkyHooks are going to be potentially blockaded, both by players trying to rob them or disable them, and even NPCs that are willing to blockade them and the Sovereignty Hub. It is worth noting that none of these structures, the Metenox, the Sovereignty Hub, and the SkyHook, none of them allow docking and none of them allow tethering. So you're absolutely defenseless when interacting with them. However, in order to combat this, CCP is also introducing, or rather I should say Upwell is also introducing, 3 new hauling ships. 4 new hauling ships. A Tech 1, both the Tech 2s, and a freighter. And the thing that makes these things pretty unique is, A, they have really good tank across the board. B, they have what's called an infrastructure hold, which allows them, it's basically a huge bay on top of the bays that they would normally have for its ship type. They have a very large bay that allows you to have fuel, PI, POS sticks or structure equipment, and like quantum cores and stuff. It does not do minerals or ice refined products, only finished fuel blocks and PI, by the way. But so like a good example of this is the T2 one, right? The T2 deep space transport. Deep space transports have a large fleet hangar. That's what they're really known for. And the normal fleet hangar at maximum skills is 65,000 M3. With this with the Torrent, which is the deep space transport, they're going to have 50,000 M3 for its infrastructure hold, as far as I know. 50,000 for its fleet hangar, and then an infrastructure hold on top of that. Okay, so these things have slightly smaller or so than their normal Tech 1 variant, but they also have the infrastructure hold. The other thing they have is missiles. All of these ships are bonused for missile systems, from the Tech 1 to the Tech 2, all the way up to the freighter. The freighter is actually the very first freighter in the game with mid slots and low slots. Sorry, mid slots and high slots. So this has some really interesting possibilities for all of these kind of options. Now, all of these things are their normal version. So like the Squall is a Tech 1 hauler, the Deluge is a blockade runner, and the Torrent is a deep space transport. So that means all of the things that would normally affect those ships also affect these ships. So so the Deluge, for example, could light a covert Sino and can jump through a covert Sino. All of them have their fatigue bonuses and such like that. And actually the Torrent has bonuses to energy neutralization on top of everything else. Overheating bonuses to energy neutralization and defensive modules. The Avalanche by far is the biggest kind of diversion from the norm, as it were, as most of the time freighters don't have the ability to defend themselves, but also normally freighters don't have mid slots, so this provides 2 additional things for the Avalanche. First of all, it can use a micro warp drive to do the micro warp drive trick. It takes 2 cycles to do the micro warp drive trick under normal conditions, but with a blinged out micro warp drive or the correct set of implants, you can actually get this down to a single cycle, which means this is a freighter that aligns in 10 seconds. That's pretty ridiculous, especially considering the fact that it has the single largest bay in the entire game at 3 million M3 for its infrastructure hold. However, it also, because of its mid slots, has the additional bonus of having a flex shield hardener, which is a shield hardener normally reserved for capital class ships, of which the Avalanche is a capital class ship. The advantage of the flex hardener is that you can actually apply a script to it to decide which resistance you would like to have. So like the reactive armor hardener, every cycle figures out what damage type you need to tank against and will modify itself in order to tank against that damage type or those damage types. The flex hardener, you tell it exactly what you want to harden for and then turn it on and it's good to go. So this offers a huge amount of defensive options to a player who is smart and knows what they're doing. Like, once you see the gank, you can see what it is that's going to gank you, and you can harden specifically for the kind of things that's about to shoot you. But on top of that, you have your missiles to defend yourself. And in order to make this valuable, the problem is that freighters can't lock things very quickly. So instead, CCP has given them a double missile bonus, where they get a missile bonus not only for just missiles in general, but a secondary missiles bonus for auto-targeting missile systems. Now, auto-targeting missile systems is a thing that has existed in the game for a very long time. They got redone a little bit, I think, in Citadels, but are largely what they've always been. They used to be called friend or foe missiles, but when a missile launcher with auto-targeting missiles fires, it chooses the closest valid target to you at the time of the missile launch, and then it shoots the missile to them. So if everybody stays still, then it'll just keep firing at the same person. But if people are moving around, then it might fire to different people at different times, depending on who's closest to them at any given time. This means that gankers could theoretically counter this, but it does mean that they have to do it smartly if they want to be able to do so. It does provide an additional option. It provides some counterplay to somebody that is in the midst of being ganked. Is it enough to win? If the ganker is motivated enough and brought enough to the table, no, it's not going to stop the gank. But at least you're going to go down fighting, and if the other opponent isn't prepared for it, it doesn't know what they're doing, which, to be honest, a lot of gankers do make mistakes. It's just, honestly, they don't get punished for it very often. This will definitely punish them for their mistakes. So, yeah. Now, the price of these things are actually going to be pretty reasonable, it seems. Now, the price for the Tech 1 is going to be about 10 times the Tech 1 version, because that's just, they're very cheap. So like 20, 30 million for the actual Upwell one. And about comparable, a little bit more expensive than the standard Tech 2 and freighter builds. Now, all of these are going to be available fairly easily, because the BPCs, in order to build them, are going to come from Upwell member corporations, which I said at the beginning. All four empires have significant corporations in Upwell Consortium. So this isn't one of those things where you have to go to Outer Ring in order to get these BPOs. They're both the Tech 1 hauler and the freighter are going to be available on day one as BPOs in these NPC marketplaces. The Tech 2, of course, need to be invented from the Tech 1. And all of these ships require new skills that require Omega. So go ahead and cry out with your pay to win or whatever. Omega hauling ships are just better than normal hauling ships at this point, where you need to have Upwell hauler and Upwell freighter skills in order to pilot these ships. Obviously, you need to have Upwell hauler 5 in order to do the deep space transport and blockade runner. And you have to have hauler 3 in order to train freighter. But other than that, that's pretty much what you need for skills. There is a new data core that is used for Upwell decryption in order to use for the invention, and I think there's an additional skill involving that. But the data cores are going to be obtainable through all of the Empire militia and LP stores. So, Mimitar, Galente, Caldari, Amar militia. They got the doodads to make pirate ships and stuff like that in Uprising, and now they're also going to get these Upwell data cores. This is why I have unallocated skill points. I know, Mike. So, Omega isn't pay to win. I've been hearing that. So I've been hearing this Omega is pay to win ever since the introduction of the Triglavians, because it's, a Tech 1 ship that can't be flown by alphas. Whatever. Cool. Anywho, so that's where we're at when it comes to the new haulers and why they're going to be applicable to the new sovereignty. Because remember, the sovereignty is going to have a lot more options, but are also going to be a little bit more dangerous from NPCs because NPCs can set up these new blockades. So it'd be handy to have a ship that can give yourself basic defenses in order to GTFO out of there if there's a problem. Now, you're going to want to fight these blockades because they can escalate to new types of sites, including new availability of officer rats and thus officer modules and other such things. Now, this doesn't stop the ways that officers are currently farmed, though they'll still be available through the normal method of, you know, basically trolling through belts until one of them shows up. But this does increase the availability of officers broadly. It could potentially bring officer modules more, potentially more reasonably priced. Hard to see that happening, but, you know, at least it'll impact it somewhat, hopefully. Okay. I think that's it for the sovereignty stuff. The Metenox moon drill, we know the least amount about it, but we do know that it will require reagents to function. So while the Metenox moon drill can be placed in nullsec, lowsec, and wormhole space, the materials to be able to make the Metenox moon drill run can only be acquired in sovereignty nullsec, which means that NPC nullsec, lowsec, and wormhole space will have to make different arrangements in order to ensure that their Metenox has all of the reagents that they require in order to operate. Now, a Metenox moon drill, again, like the other structures, cannot be docked and cannot allow anybody to tether to it. But what it does is it slowly, passively mines the moon. So this is much similar to the way that POSs used to be, where you would put a POS on a moon and it would extract the moon goo over the course of time. Same true with the Metenox moon drill. It will just sit there and drill on the moon. No mining by players required. However, due to the cost of the Metenox moon drill, the need to defend it against any and all attacks, and its requirement to have reagents in order to function, many people will still find themselves wanting to mine a moon rather than extract it via the Metenox. So, for instance, if you have an R64 moon in nullsec that, you know, you'd mine anyways, you might want to leave that to be able to be mined so that way you can get the absolute most value out of that moon every month. Because the Metenox isn't going to get as much total goo out of that moon as it would be by manually mining it. In addition to that, a lot of major organizations need to have activities for their players to do. And so while mining wasn't as popular back in the day, the God honest truth is that mining has become more popular over the last decade or so. So in that fact, a lot of groups will likely continue to have moon mining available just to have it available, to give them something to do. So you might put on some Metenox moon drills on some moons that you wouldn't be getting value out of anyways, or if it's in an area that's way too dangerous to do or active moon mining, like for instance, a wormhole or a low-sec system, it might be easier to defend the structure itself than to defend the mining fleets. And in those cases, it might be a good idea as long as you can keep it supplied. But this does provide everyone an additional option for how you want to go about it, depending on how you want to build up your empire. Because again, that's what this is all about, is about giving us the tools to construct the type of empire that we choose, wherever it happens to be. So, yeah. I think that this will have more of an impact on, I think Malik is correct. R8 and R16 prices are going to crash because now people are going to be mining those moons with these Metenoxes that wouldn't have done it otherwise. However, moons will also have to be potentially valuable enough. Like if it costs reagents to operate, then as well as fuel blocks, then you have to do the math to figure out whether or not you mine up enough moon goo to pay for the cost of operation. So, yeah. Also, Metenox moondrills have a short single reinforcement timer, which CCP has clarified short means a matter of hours, not days. So this is one of those things that, like, if you want to have one of these dudes, you got to be prepared to defend it anytime. Also, there's going to be a lot of new information available in the corporation window, which we'll look at a little bit more later. But yeah, so that's it. This is this is the biggest pillar of the expansion, okay? The sovereignty and the new ships involved with it, and all of the new features and sites and challenges and stuff that comes with it, especially to Sovereignty Null, but to the entirety of EVE through this system. This is the biggest thing that's coming in Equinox. Now, the question then comes, like, well, how fast is this going to change over? So every system is going to, on a per system basis, be given the option to transfer from the old system to the new system. Basically, all iHubs and TCUs are going to disappear. Sorry, all iHubs and TCUs in Sovereignty nullsec space are going to disappear from the system and be replaced by one of these Upwell Sovereignty hubs. Okay, and that Upwell Sovereignty hub is going to behave like a normal Sovereignty hub or like a normal iHub until you decide to change it over, right? So you'll be able to interact with it as if it was an iHub from now, right? But there's going to be a button that when you click it, it transfers the entire system over to the new system. So it might be easier to use the old system for now because you don't require the power, you don't require the reagents, you don't require the personnel, but you do require your ADMs, right? You got to have a military 5, you got to have industry 5, you know, all those kinds of things in order to keep that system upgraded. Whereas before, or in the new system, your ADMs don't actually really matter so much. The only thing that ADMs really matter with is the actual act of sovereignty fighting itself, because ADMs provide a security threshold or like a basically advantage to the defender in those sovereignty fights based on how much their ADMs are within the system. So it's still going to be worth getting your ADMs up, but it's not going to be tied to what sovereignty bonuses that you can get. One of the biggest examples of this is this means that you could actually turn on a Sinojammer in a system on day 1, when normally you would have to wait like 25 days, I think it is, before you can actually online a Sinojammer under the current system. So there's a lot of systems that people are going to want to transfer sooner rather than later, and there are some systems that people might not want to bother with per se until they're prepared and have all of their infrastructure tied up. I don't think that we're going to get people to transfer day 1 because we need these SkyHooks to be built and deployed. So we're going to see people quickly try to build and deploy these SkyHooks, and once enough SkyHooks are deployed in order for the basic infrastructure to be set up, that's when you're going to see these major iHubs being transferred over to sovereignty hubs. Now, you will see all of them transfer before November. They have until the next expansion in November, which CCP has kind of low-key confirmed that the next expansion is in November. And by that point, if they haven't already, the system will automatically switch over to the new system, and there will be no more sovereignty iHubs in the game at all. So that's how that works. Now, as far as your specific empire's plans, you're going to have to ask your empire's leadership, and if your empire's leadership is worth a salt, they probably won't answer you. So it's just going to be something that's worth keeping an eye on, both as an aggressor and as a defender of sovereignty. Is the Sinojammer on the SkyHook system-wide, or it's just local to the structure? Yes, there is a ready or not deadline in November. Yeah, Navy ships are pretty cheap. Pirate ships, on the other hand. All right. We're actually going to jump over to the sovereignty, or to the stronger groups and enhanced goals, because I feel like this is part of that whole thing, too. how far from the sky, but I don't think that they know 100%, but yeah, same grid is what we've heard. Okay, so, and they've also suggested that, like, they don't, like, the details about the SkyHook Sinojammer, because once you begin hacking it, it Sinojams the actual SkyHook itself. But they've said they seemed the most sketchy on those details. And it seemed like they are still trying to make sure that it works design-wise. So we don't actually have the details on that. And there are some other details that were kind of in flux at the time. But I think I got everything right this time. On a technical note, I wonder if the introduction of these new systems helps CCP with ease of upkeep, keep less spaghetti to deal with after all. I mean, I'd hope so. But at the same time, I'd like to think that most of the sovereignty system that was made in like 2015, 2014, which wasn't like the spaghetti code era. So I'd like to hope that they were a little bit better. Maybe that's why they were able to tie into it so effectively, because this is kind of an extension of the Aegis sovereignty. All right. So next, though, we do have some additional features for corporations. As I alluded to earlier, there is a new corporation interface that is modeled off of the opportunities window. It's pretty clean. It allows you to manage all of the things that you normally would with your corporation, including your corporation projects and whatnot, in a very easy to see, easy to use interface. The old corporation management tools were super clunky. And then, of course, this will, in addition, allow you to kind of keep track of all of your sovereignty stuff to see whether or not there's any notifications about things being attacked or online or offline or whatever else, right? In addition to this, there's going to be 2 new corporation projects. One is ship loss, which makes it so that a corporation can automatically offer rewards, i.e. payouts, i.e. insurance for ships that are lost. You can specify the kind of ship. You can specify where the ship is lost and who destroyed the ship as criteria. So you can say only Guardians in 1DQ killed by PanFam, and then it'll pay it out. So this is absolutely abusable, but this is the whole point, right? Like, trust is powerful, but only if trust is real. If you set up their requirements incorrectly, somebody could easily milk the SP or the ISK out of this. However, at the very least, you will have a record of that loss. So if somebody wants to screw themselves or burn their spy or whatever in order to milk money out of a project, well, I guess go for it. Whatever, cool. What this does is it does allow for a little bit of easier record keeping. You know, as I said in that case, like, if I know I'm going to go out on a nullsec thing or a big fleet or whatever, and I do want to SRP my Logi, it makes sense to just do this so that way the SRP to the Logi is just automatic and everybody knows it, right? That's a good example. I do think that this requires, depending on how it's set up, excuse me, it could require a little bit more advanced options. It'd be nice if you could make it so that it's multiple locations or multiple targets or multiple ships without it being multiple projects. Something that tells me I doubt that. But also, like, one of the things that I'd really like to see in this case is, like, if you're in the fleet, but they have said that public or alliance contracts or alliance projects are later down the road. There's 3 new projects. The second is earning loyalty points, which means that you can basically offer instant ISK versus LP by placing a tax on LP and then placing a reward on the earning of LP, right? So if I have a 10% tax, right, and then I set it up for, like, what is it? I guess it would have to be opposite, right? Because, like, it'd be 100 ISK per LP. Because that way, if you get 10,000 LP, I get 1,000 LP, and you get paid 1,000 ISK per LP for that 1,000 LP, if that makes sense. So it's a bit complicated, but it does allow for instant, free, available LP buyback program, which is wonderful, especially for faction warfare groups. It does mean that you should definitely be wary of your alliance's plans. I definitely know of some alliances that kind of screw over their members by this. But the biggest thing that I think worries me is the idea that this is for any LP. They really need to make this so that it is a specific corporation's LP, because right now, like, one of the problems that we ran into when they first made the LP tax was my faction warfare dudes and my incursion runners have a very different relationship to their LP and how much they feel it's worth and how much they're okay with you taking some of it. So that's going to be a thing that has to be worked out. No, what? No, it's any corporation. Applicable to any kind of loyalty point. I didn't think that they could apply it to... Do they have an option for it? I never saw that. The new video? All right, hold on. Oh, yep, you're right. Corporation. All right, I take it back. That's fine. Great. Awesome. I didn't know you can actually specify the corp that you're getting loyalty points from. That fixes everything. Oh, well, it doesn't really fix the tax, but it allows me to put different rates on different corporations. Perfect. Thank you for that. The third one is salvaging. It allows you to reward people for salvaging. I think this is probably the least used one, just because, like, often salvagers already get rewarded because it's like, well, if you go salvage, then you get to keep all the salvage. Most of the time, people don't really care about that. However, in things like incursions, that could actually, or sorry, invasions back in the day, that could have been really, really useful because, you know, needing somebody to constantly salvage in order to get the value for everybody is a big thing. So it just gives an option. In addition to that, we also have Air Daily Goals, which includes, on top of everything else, it has the 2 new tasks, including salvaging and earning LP, that you can do. So every day you have 4, I think, basic tasks for you to choose from. If you do at least 2 of them, then you get the credit for doing it for the day. One of the things that's really controversial about this expansion is that what we're seeing is the end of the daily login reward track, which means, of course, the standard methods that we get right now for getting, say, Halcyon boosters and Halcyon skins is going away. Now, they have talked about how the sequencer, like this mid-tier thing, this second tier with components and sequencers, they said that it'll come with a box with like 5 or 6 different items in it, which which they've described as skins, but like it might be just skin components. I'm not sure exactly how one-to-one this is going to replace the skins that come from the daily career path or the daily login reward path. But it is true, absolutely, that I don't see any mechanism to get Halcyon boosters anymore, which really sucks because those are kind of an interesting tool, especially for newer players. And I did actually look at my Halcyon boosters when I was going to go do things to see what I had available to me. And that kind of sometimes chose, oh, well, am I going to go to shields or am I going to go to armor? Am I going to go active or am I going to mine? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I would choose based on what Halcyons I had available to me. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, mining and abyss running. Yeah, the Halcyon boosters are great. I'm going to be very sad to see them go. But they also point out that you can end up getting more than SP per month than you used to be able to do. But that's only if you complete the 12 days of tasks on all 3 of your characters on the same account. So it's a little bit of a creative accounting that comes to that conclusion. The other thing is, like, that I've heard kind of voiced in frustration is the fact that this is only 12 days, which is fine from like the idea of like, well, it's not that big of an ask, right? You don't have to do it every day. You only have to find 12 days out of the month in order to do 2 tasks, and then you're fine. But like, what's weird about this is it's gonna make the second half of the month feel kind of worthless to a lot of people, right? Like right now with like events and stuff, they make it so that the event reward stuff even past the big reward. And I think that really should be what they do here, right? Like, there's plenty of extra room for things like Halcyon boosters and other things to go after the 12-day thing. Like, let the big prize be at 12 days to make everybody feel good and get their SP. But give people something more for people that log in and are active more than 12 times per month, right? Like, it feels really weird to both put an additional restriction on people that don't necessarily log in a lot, but also fail to reward people that do log in a lot and do a lot. So it feels like the kind of system that's designed to make nobody feel good about it. And you combine that with the fact that it's only got 5 plex in its reward. Like, why even give 5 plex? What is the point of giving 5 plex? Just to put this into perspective, we're going to jump into SKINR in a minute, but in order to build or sequence the most basic skin on a battlecruiser, it has a base price of 30 plex on top of all of the requirements for the extra skins and doodads and stuff like that you're adding onto it. It just has a base value of 30 for the hull itself, it would seem, which means you would have to do your daily bonus for 6 months to be able to get the very, very basic piece of one of these ships, which is like, again, just why break through this? Like, you've never given away plex like this on a regular basis. Why break that policy just to give people 5 plex a month? Like 1% of the cost of your plex for the month if you do good for 10 days. I don't know, man. It's so weird to me. Because the first hit is free, but it's like these things don't change, so it's every month. I mean, like, honestly, like, okay, the Evermarks are fine, whatever. Although the fact that they've put in nothing new for Evermarks is also kind of wild. Really, in my opinion, the only rewards that are really, really worth it in this bunch is the SKINR stuff and the skill points, which means only at day 4, or it's 3, right? So day 6 and day 12 are worth a damn. Day 3 and day 9 are kind of super meh, right? Am I wrong? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. The main issue I have it with FOMO, I mean, like, at least it's not temporary, right? At least it's not, well, if you log in this month, you're going to get this particular skin. That would be FOMO, right? Like Hearthstone, right? Each like season or every month, I can't remember what it is. There's like a different backing, right? What if there was a special SKINR component that you could only unlock by doing so many in that month, and the next month it's going to be a different component? The box that you get is random, so it's not going to be whatever. You only get plex from Omega? Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, you can't do 100 alphas. 100 alphas will only get some ISK. I just don't see why it has to have a timer. Well, because, let's be frank, the game has to make its money. There's going to be some design issues or design concepts that are, not consumer friendly, as it were. But as far as things go, like this FOMO is definitely not the strongest FOMO I've seen in a while. Trust me, I play Raid Shadow Legends. I know a thing or two about FOMO. You could do that, Jeff, and that would be an option, but they chose not to do that. They clearly do want to initiate at least some impulse of FOMO. They even wouldn't, they could have just kept in the daily reward track, but they didn't. They want people to, forcing people to feel compelled to go out and complete these objectives is the feature, not the bug. Got to cook the books, log in every day to keep those login numbers up. I wouldn't even say that, Wizard. One of the things that we have proven time and time and time again, ever since Skills for Kills, is that yes, these replace the daily login. If you get people to just undock and do a thing, even if it's as simple as kill one rat, that can be the impetus, that can be the catalyst for a spiral of actions in the game, right? Even when they did Skills for Kills, where it was just log in every day and kill one rat, I had all kinds of crazy things. I ran into Morty rats. I got PvP sometimes. Sometimes I got it right away. Sometimes I had to look through 3 different systems in their belts in order to get a rat. Sometimes I did the Abyss in order to avoid any problems. So, like, while these tasks do seem pretty simple, they do get you in there and they do get you to start playing, which is a big deal. And it's very possible that they've learned that just getting you to go to the login screen and collect your rewards is insufficient. Getting a person to log in, undock with a goal in mind, even if that goal is trivially simple, that's how stories are made. That's how interactions are made. EVE Online is not about the thing that you're trying to do. The excitement of EVE is almost never in the actual thing that you're going out to do. It's all of the unforeseen events, all of the other circumstances. It is the interaction of your simple plan with this wildly chaotic universe that is what creates the unique and interesting stories of EVE Online. So, yes, they are compelling people to go out there and do something, but that's because it works. And EVE Online, unlike a lot of other MMOs, really, really, really hinges on how good its player base is. The more the players are out there doing things, the more lively the universe is. You don't get to make up for it. The PvE isn't enough to make the universe feel that alive. EVE relies on player interaction. EVE relies on players being out there doing things. Okay. And then also there is new hangar management, which allows you to kind of see your ships in a little bit clearer of a way. On the one hand, they take up more space. On the other hand, it gives you a little bit more information about the type of ship, if that's what you need. It also gives you the ability, one of the things I love about this thing is you can hover over a ship's little icon to see that ship's fit. That is wildly cool. I love it, and they need to put that in asset window. But, you know, I'm not 100% convinced everybody's going to use it. I think it would be a really good default to start players with to kind of introduce them with these concepts. But we'll see. Let me know if you're interested in actually using these cards. I still wonder what's going to happen if you made it wide enough for there to be 3 rows or whatever, but we'll see. In addition to that, when you assemble a ship, it'll now ask you to name the ship, which is going to change like the whole, like, you know, a lot of newbie players or just general players, forget to rename their ship, or for whatever reason, the ship gets fails to get renamed. And on the stream, they talk about how people pick on newbies because they can see that they haven't renamed their ship. I don't necessarily agree with that, because it's not just newbies that don't rename their ship. What it really is free intel, right? If I see somebody on directional scanner, if I see 10 people in system and I see a ship on directional scanner, I don't necessarily know who of those 10 people are in that particular ship. But if that ship is named that person's named ship, then now I do know. And so if I know who he is, then I know who he's associated with. I might be able to guess who in the system is his support, whether or not they're a threat, etc., etc. There's so much free intel that can come just by not renaming a ship. And so this is going to standardize that, making it so that, that free intel kind of goes away for a lot of people. Yeah. But it also, I think, will give people a little bit more ownership of their ships, asking you to create a name for your ship does provide a little bit of ownership to it. Maybe it'll make those losses a little bit more painful. Also, another great feature that they added in is if your ship now, if you're lacking skills, you can instantly use skill points to apply the skills required to fly your ship or fit. This is so useful to me for so many reasons. Like that process of, I can't really fit this ship. Okay, what are you missing? Okay, how many skill points is that? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is a thing. And so this standardizes that process. I would say this is one of the #1 use cases for unallocated SP. In fact, I would argue that if you're using your unallocated SP in any other way besides this, you should think about what you're doing long and hard, because a lot of people will waste their SP because they're like, oh, well, I need to get this skill earlier. You know, I might need to fly assault ships sooner. But then they train themselves into it, and then they don't fly assault ships for a week or two. Well, guess what? You should have trained that slowly. You should only ever apply your skill points when you're there with the ship in your hands, ready to go, and the only reason why you can't fly it is because you don't have the skills for it. Then and only then should you apply your unallocated SP, unless there's some other reason why you need that skill right this second. So this use case of, oh crap, here's a ship, I need these skills in order to be able to fly it, including its fit, perfect. Perfect. 10 of 10. No notes. Well, little note. It'd be nice if you could do the same thing for like masteries or for like I guess you could do it with just a skill plan on top of that. So never mind. All right. Yeah. So that's it when it comes to corporation management and leadership and goals, etc. in the new world. Yeah. So then, finally, the other biggest pillar that we have is, of course, the new SKINR system. The new SKINR system looks super cool. I've covered this on several videos, and they've shown it off on their live stream and whatnot. But this thing provides a whole bunch of options. Now, the way it's going to work is there's going to be a bunch of options that are built in that are infinite use, right? There's going to be a standard set. There's 2 patterns, and there is a smattering of colors that are going to be infinite uses. Now, when you use one of these infinite use skins, or like components in your skin, you will have to pay a certain amount of plex in order to do so, as well as the sequence binders to do it. Okay? However, you can also get SKINR components through other methods, either by buying them with plex on the Paragon hub, or drops from special loot, or prizes for events or wherever else. And these components that you get will most of the time be limited uses. For instance, the ones that you can buy on the store are 3 uses each. Now, the nice thing about these limited uses is, because they're a limited use, it means that you've already paid for them, either by finding it or purchasing it from the Paragon Hub. So they don't charge you again. So while it does cost extra plex to use an infinite use thing, it does not require extra plex to use one of these limited use things in your design. It only requires plex to acquire it or whatever from the Paragon Hub. Now, there's a lot of different options for the different colors that you can use, as well as the pattern and how that pattern can be applied. There's a lot of customization to it. But, you know, we've covered that in a lot of other ones. You can see it for yourself. I can't really, like, put it into words very much. But you have a lot of flexibility for how these things looked and how it's projected. And there are going to be people that are very, very good at this. However, like I said, it does require plex to sequence him. And in fact, if you want to speed up this sequencing, like this one takes 2 days and 19 hours. So in order to make this skin, it not only requires these sequence binders, it requires this plex, and it requires 2 days and 19 hours. Now, there are 2 ways to speed up that sequencing time. One is via skills. You can either, there's a skill that lets you reduce this time, and then there's a different skill that lets you do multiple of the same skin at the same time. So there's one skill that'll make this like go down, say 2 days, for example. And then there's another skin that'll make it so you can make like, say, 10 copies of this skin in the 2 days instead of just 1. So both of those skills are going to be added to the game And together we'll make this sequence faster. The other way to make things sequence faster is to pay additional Plex, which is something that the community has largely been against since they've mentioned it. It smacks it's very free-to-play-ish with the idea of, paying Plex to complete a timer. It does question, like, why are we paying to undermine one of our skills? Not sure if I really like that aspect in particular, but it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, especially compared to some of the other pieces. Now, it does require Plex per sequencing, but that is to make it comparable to buying skins on the Plex store. So in the same sort of way now, if you were using all infinite skins, you'd probably pay about the same amount for an equivalent skin as you would on the Nest. The skin is going to be more expensive for larger hulls. And hulls such as T3 cruisers, T3 ships, T3 cruisers and destroyers, as well as special edition ships will not be available via the SKINR system at first. And also, there is no way to necessarily share these skins very easily. You can't share the design of the skins. But more importantly, apparently, at last I heard, all transferring of skins must be done via the Plex hub, or the Paragon hub, which as of right now appears to take a 30% cut of any transfers. Not sure exactly how realistic that's going to be, but according to CCP, you will not be able to transfer these skins directly between people otherwise. Seems like a glaring flaw. I hope they correct that shortly after, or that gets changed, but that could definitely be a bit of a hitch. So for those of you, combining this with the idea that there are not only new SKINR components, but also types of SKINR components that are likely to come in the near future, for instance, for being able to customize, say, your headlights color, right? These are things that will be likely coming in the near future. However, remember, any skins that you sequence now are already going to be sequenced. So while it is cool to play around with these toys, I would say that just like with opportunities, the vast use cases of the new SKINR system is likely going to come later. So I wouldn't necessarily go a whole ham splurge on them day one, because we are officially in early adopter mode when it comes to the new SKINR system starting on the 11th. So play with it, sell some skins if you can. You'll be able to sell it for either ISK or Plex on the Paragon hub. There's a lot of really cool stuff with this, but if you have those grand plans of like outfitting your entire fleet with a uniform, or your entire corporation or alliance with a uniform, that stuff comes later. Same with like any sort of advanced particle effects or cool effects or anything like that. And as of right now, we don't know of anything else besides logos coming from the Paragon hub. So we know what we got, which is basic recolors and projected textures on ships via SKINR. Not much else. So on the one hand, that is a whole new world of opened opportunities. But on the other hand, it is just the tip of the iceberg. So plan your Plex accordingly. Now, there has been a lot of speculation about how this will affect the Plex market. And I think that it could go either way, right? Because on the one hand, this is a whole bunch of new Plex needing to be used in order to buy these things. But on the other hand, these skins are effectively replacing the NES store skins, right? Why would you buy Oasis of Faith when you could just build Oasis of Faith in exactly the colors that you want and change the pattern slightly or whatever, right? So what I think that this will do, though, if there's anything, I think it might increase the pressure on Plex, not necessarily because, like, all of these new ways of spending Plex in that same sort of sense, but more that, like, there's probably plenty of people that would buy a skin for a ship, except there are no good skins for them for that ship. This effectively gets rid of that possibility, right? When I hop into an Absolution, I'm not going to go through all the skins available and be like, oh, I don't really like any of these. I'll get Spirit, I guess, whatever, right? So anybody who goes looking for a good skin will be able to find a good skin, or at least make one. And so for that reason alone, I think that you're going to see an increased demand in Plex as more people that go shopping for a skin find one that they are willing to spend money on, as opposed to right now, where you either like the 2 or 3 skins or so that are decent on any given ship hull, or you're just SOL. A bunch of people just want a black ship. There are so many people that want black ship with red trim, black ship with gold trim. Like, seriously. Which you can see here. Black is 15 Plex for 3 uses. The extra steps are unnecessary. So I think that there is definitely something to say for the extra steps. I just think that the idea that you can pay Plex to bypass them undermines any argument you could possibly make for why those timers and things exist in the first place, right? Like, you could say, like, oh, well, you don't want people to be able to, like, just replace a skin instantly. If I see a skin that I want, I can just make it myself instantly. No, this makes it so that I have to wait 2 days to do it. But no, it just makes it so it costs a little bit of extra Plex, which, given the fact that the Plex store requires a 30%, or the Paragon Hub, if the Paragon Hub does require a 30%, tax, that means there must be a 30% markup on the cost in order to even break even. And if that 30% cost is less than or the equivalent of the Plex it takes to make it go instantly, then congratulations, CCP, you've just undermined your own feature. That's more my concern than anything, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Yes, Sorum skins on Galente ships, exactly. Well, they're designing it as an in-game profession, but an in-game profession requires Plex. That's a giant red flag. But it's an in-game profession that deals in Plex. Remember, you can sell these skins for Plex. Therefore, everything you're dealing with it is just in Plex. You know, you have an initial investment, and then you build things with Plex to sell things for more Plex. Your profit is in Plex. Your margins are in Plex. It's just you're working on a whole different currency. How often do they roll out Plex sales like the one a couple of weeks ago? They cycle through their deals, but they generally have at least some sort of deal happening, if not at any given time, at least once a month or so. They come up with a good excuse. I want my ship to bear the colors of the Empyrean of Man, Emperor protects. Well, yeah, that's the thing. If you've got some dreams, no, that's the big one, right? If you want a skin, you're no longer going to go, or at least I'm not going to go to the Nest store to look for a skin. I'm going to play around with the, like, if we're waiting to form up, here's the thing. Now I'm actually even more sad because of the paying to speed it up thing. But, if I'm waiting for a fleet and I've got my ship, I'm going to be sitting there in the skin designer playing around with it, seeing if I can make a good skin for it. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. If I have to pay to some extra Plex in order to make it available right now, I might just do that. Depending on the ship, depending on the fleet, depending on how good the skin looks, I'm not going to wait for 2 days. The fleet's not going to happen in 2 days. The fleet's happening right now. So, that's definitely a use case where they're going to get their money. Anywho, but yeah, like, those are the biggest things that we're going to get this upcoming expansion. Let me go double check. We have SkyHook, planetary power, Metenox, sovereignty hub, transport vehicles, highly skilled workforce, and the SKINR system. The only other thing that's worth noting is that next month we do also get the new Vanguard playtest, which should be lasting all month and should be a new map, new customization, new progression, etc., etc. So that's another thing that's coming next month alongside Equinox. But that's what we get so far. So in the next week, we are expecting a final dev blog that's kind of like a high level or wrap it up or little things from like the kind of a dev blog. I don't expect any huge announcements, no game changers coming from that. Then on that'll be on Tuesday. On Thursday, we might get another live stream based on what we get on Tuesday. But then on Friday, we're going to get the actual patch notes to review. Then the next Tuesday will be the beginning of Equinox. I also would not be surprised if CCP gives away some time of Omega. For instance, call it 1 week of Omega, I think is what they normally do, for free for everyone for Equinox. That's what they've done the last 2 expansions. Or 3 expansions? 2 of the last 3 expansions at least. So you can expect that. And then what I expect is a whole bunch of work or, like bustle from nullsec groups as they are building their SkyHooks and whatnot ready to go. I foresee specific systems, like systems that they get the most out of, will likely be transferred over to the new system as quickly as possible because these new upgrades are going to be really, really valuable. Also, systems that will now be able to find new value, like, for instance, oh, well, we need a low-sec ore system ASAP. You're going to see that happen as well, where a system that was otherwise fairly worthless for things now can have low-sec anomalies and low-sec moon mining, or low-sec belt mining, or whatever, anomalies, or minerals. That's the word. And we also should see a big uptick in the use of these haulers. I don't think that the use of these freighters are going to be as big of a deal as a lot of people say. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that really, really like the avalanches, but I honestly predict that most haulers won't switch to the new freighter, and I'll tell you why. If a person is going to switch over to the new freighter for its increased defensive capabilities, then they would be the kind of person that triple bulkheads their freighter already. These new freighters are going to have less cargo space than a triple bulkheaded freighter does today. So, given the fact that players already give up their defensibility of having a triple bulkheaded freighter for the purposes of having additional cargo space, I foresee that just as many people will forego the avalanche completely and try to get the larger freighter, because the only reason to have a freighter is for its cargo space. So larger cargo space means that people are going to choose it over everything else. If you're not expecting to get ganked, then having an avalanche is just more expensive for less work done. So, yeah. But as far as like, I foresee big like uptick in the use of PI and the shuffling around of PI. PI in particular is going to be a lot easier to move around. Fuel blocks are going to be a lot easier to move around. PI already got easier to move around because of they got reduced in size. But with these new infrastructure holds, that's, I think, the biggest use cases for these ships is easily moving around PI and fuel blocks that allows just your everyday logistics of EVE Online to go a little bit smoother. For wormholes, for high sec, for low sec, for null sec, each of them have a reason why this is particularly interesting for them for this reason. But are people going to get an avalanche if all they're planning on doing is hauling in high sec? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not as many people as you think are going to give up their obelisk or Charon for an avalanche, but they could always prove me wrong. But am I wrong in any of what I've said? Have I missed anything? Am I not covering anything? Is my predictions wrong about anything? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below or in the chat. I think that this is about everything that we got for the day. 07 to you, Satonia. Thank you for dropping by. But with all that said, I, for one, am very much looking forward to Equinox. Sure, there's certain pieces of it that are a little bit more disappointing than others, but man, that's only because of how monumentally exciting this is overall. Nullsec has been needing something to inject it with lifeblood into it for, well, honestly since Lifeblood, ironically enough. But yeah, when are we getting decals? Exactly. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, we will definitely be doing the reading the patch notes on Friday, next Friday, assuming I can stream on Friday. I don't know, whatever the world might fall in. But yeah, the blockade runner is insane for running reactions. Yet there is a lot of that is one of the things, is that I can tell already that there's a lot of people that are going to take slightly better risks than they did before, right? There's going to be a lot more people that are willing to do some PI in low sec. There's going to be more people willing to do reactions in low sec, move things around in haulers in low sec in particular than were willing to do it before, because they feel just a little bit safer now than they did before, especially the torrent. I think that the torrent personally is the unsung hero of this expansion, but we're going to have to see. It's going to be a 38-minute read. That's not bad. Don't worry, Satonia. I'll make it into a 3-hour analysis. No problem. No problem at all. But yeah, I guess that is about it for today. I have been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys so much for watching this stream, checking it out. I hope you're as excited for Equinox as I am. But I am very, very interested, especially null block players. I want to hear from you. My opinion on nullsec doesn't matter, like, even a little bit. So please help inform my decisions. Give me some feedback. What do you think about this? What do you think about what's going to happen? Do you have you heard anything from your leadership? Do you have anything exciting to talk about? Tranquilla, thank you for those 5 gifted memberships. To Piet, Brolox, Domajo, and Jared, and myself, thank you very much to Tranquilla Mare. And, of course, to Punch, Bash, Sheesh, and Malik Starfire for your guys' support. All of you, and all of you who watch the stream and like it for the guinea pigs. You guys are my hero and the reason why this stream is able to exist. And let me tell you, we are doing good work here. We are here to help people understand EVE Online, raise the literacy of EVE Online, and thus improve EVE Online. Because as I said earlier, EVE Online is as good as we make it collectively by playing in it. EVE itself is just a hollow shell that we fill with our lives and knowledge. So the more people that we can get involved, and the more informed those people are, we need people making informed decisions and interesting actions in game. So thank you guys for hanging out and learning, and thank you for sharing my stuff with other people. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, or you haven't gotten your free million SP, make sure to use the link down below or in the chat in order to get your free million SP and allocate it to whatever you want. On each of your accounts. It does help support the show. If you want to help me maximize player engagement with EVE Online, you can join the Convocation of Empyreans or the Invited in-game and help our efforts and fly with me in space. But I also do want to thank all of my supporters, patrons, etc. And of course, as I said, all of you who just bear with me through these things, share it with other people. Very, very important. But all that said, I have been Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden. And until next time, I'll see you in space. See you next week. Okay, I lied. I wanted people to leave. Has everybody clicked off yet? Has everybody clicked off? Hold on. Hey, come on in. Hold on. I promised my son that he could come on and say hi today again. So, how you doing?
Good.
Are you sure? You're supposed to be feeling sick. You're not feeling sick? Got you! Haha, ganked. All right.
This is what I have to put up with every day.
Give him an 07, Zed. 07.
07.
Woo!
Bring on the wrecking machine. Every city you burn, I'm gonna build high. Bring on the wrecking machine, setting your dreams of heaven on fire. Bring on the wrecking machine. Bring on the wrecking machine. Bring on the wrecking machine. Gonna ignite your every desire. Bring on the wrecking machine. For every city you burn, let it burn, let it burn, let it burn. For every city you